Good afternoon. This is David Henry. I'm the Communications Manager for the City of Amarillo. I want to welcome everyone to our Council Connect for Tuesday, July 7th. For those unfamiliar, Council Connect is something the city does once a month, the first Tuesday of every month. It will include 2 council members in what can be described as maybe a less formal environment than a regular city council meeting. We take questions from the public. When this first started, this was done at the Amarillo Downtown Library in person. Obviously, things have changed the past few months, so we are doing it a virtual meeting, if you will, and that will be that way for the foreseeable future. Let me go ahead and introduce who is participating from Amarillo City Council in today's meeting. We're joined by Councilmembers Freda, Powell, and Eddy, Sauer. Freda, Eddy, how are y'all?
Good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you guys for participating. We appreciate you making the time. We're just going to throw out a couple of questions for you guys at first. Whoever wants to answer is fine, no particular order. And then we'll include a couple of questions that we did receive in emails from the public. Our first question, this is sort of a recent one from last week. What are the thoughts of you guys as council members on the governor's most recent executive order related to face masks in public? How do you think Amarillo is responding to this latest executive order?
Well, who do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think the governor is doing his very best at trying to address issues that are all over our state of Texas. And the interesting thing about the state of Texas, is all of us well know, is that from the tip of Texas on the southern border to the tip of Texas on the northern border, you add another 200 miles and we're halfway to the Canadian border. So that's a lot of territory. And so for expecting for our governor to get it exactly right for everybody, I think that's a pretty heady thing for him to be able to do. So I think I think he's doing the very best that he can. And I think the whole idea of relating to wearing a face mask in public is, you know what, I'm going to respect the governor's order, regardless of whatever my personal opinion is. I look to the fact that he's actually the governor of the state of Texas. He has taken on that position. He's had to make these decisions. And I'm going to do my very best to support him to the best of my ability. And really, as far as I'm concerned, wearing a face mask you're talking to the wrong person. I've been doing that every day for the past 34 years. So I'm already pretty familiar with how that works and all the pros and cons that go with it. But I do know this, it protects people. And if that's what we need to do to help stop the spread, then I'm okay with that.
Councilmember Powell, your thoughts?
I too have a great deal of respect for Governor Abbott and his decision, statewide for us to be wearing face masks. As a public representative on the City Council for Amarillo, my first priority again is always for safety for the majority of our citizens. And if we can all politely wear our mask, my mask protects you, your mask protects me. And what I'm looking at is we want to save lives. We don't want to infringe on anyone's rights. We don't want to do that at all. But I know that it's going to be quite some time before we are out of COVID-19. My heart certainly goes out to our businesses here in Amarillo, because I know a lot of our businesses are definitely suffering because of COVID-19. Their customer base has gone extremely down. And my focus is, how do we get our citizens or the customers to come back to these businesses, and how do businesses kind of retain their customer base before COVID-19. And that's where we are right now, because if we look throughout our city, most of our businesses, their customer base has declined, and they're still barely hanging on or barely staying in business. So my hope is that we can all work together and wear our masks so that we can be a part of the solution in driving our numbers down, and that is our COVID-19 positive numbers down, because that's really what we're trying to do at this particular time. And again, I don't want to, we don't want to see someone having to wear masks, but right now it's the only solution. Do we have all the answers? No, we do not. We don't have all the answers, but I can tell you what I see that is working. That is when we wear our mask and we are social distancing. It's helping. It helps our numbers to decline. And we can look at maybe the past 3 or 4 weeks where we've had large gatherings. It seems like our numbers have again spiked. So, just asking the citizens within the city of Amarillo to politely wear your mask, and I'm doing the same, and I'm trying to be diligent about doing it. Sometimes we leave without it, but I try to keep a mask every place I go so that I have it. But those are just my initial thoughts in wearing masks. So appreciate that opportunity to share my opinion.
Thank you, Councilmember Powell. This is sort of a more current question. This has been some discussion among the council, and this is something that could happen far off in the future, or maybe not at all. Just tell me your thoughts, both of you, about possibly changing to staggered elections for city council. What are some of your thoughts on that, some of your opinions on it? Just for those who don't understand what that word staggered means, it means there would be all 5 spots in the council would not be up every 2 years. What are your thoughts on that, Freda and Eddy, whichever one wants to go first?
Okay, so I haven't really given it some thought, but I can tell you as an elected official and having to run every 2 years, it is very challenging when you're still trying to do your job for the city of Amarillo and run a campaign at the same time. Having staggered terms, of course, it would allow for us as council members maybe to have a longer term on the council. It would certainly help for us to focus on some of the long-term goals that we've been trying to work on, because when you're elected and you have a 2-year period, that is so short. I mean, that first year that you are elected, and if you don't have any experience in being on the council, you are running fast and furious trying to get caught up and learn all the different departments within the city, all of the different budgets. So it can be quite complicated. So having a staggered term, it's going to give the council also a little bit more stability. And the training would be reduced somewhat, but training is always going to be ongoing. And so, I also think that, you're going to have the opportunity for new people to come onto the council, but more than anything, it would give us a little bit more stability instead of the entire council being up for election every year.
Councilman Sauer?
Okay, so I agree with what Freda has said. Here's the one thing that I'd say. So right now, Freda is also making the assumption that we would have to increase the term. We'd have to increase the length of terms. And yes. I'm going to say that's the second part of the question is going to be for us to have staggered elections means that we have to lengthen terms. And I'm going to come at it from a little different aspect. I don't think the citizens of Amarillo are going to want to go to the polls every May to elect new city council positions. So therefore, you have to increase the council length of term to either 3 or 4 years to allow for that to work, so that you've got people staggered enough that you're not having to have an election every year. And I'm fully in favor of that. And I will tell you that it took the first 2 years of being on council to really feel pretty confident and comfortable in understanding exactly how everything is going on. And so for whoever follows me in a council position, I would want for them to have the ability to have a longer term so that they get all the understanding underneath their feet, so that they can become productive even maybe that much quicker. I think that's an important thing. So to kind of go back to what Councilmember Powell said, is the fact that going back into election all the time, I would like for that to not have to be the case. So then you can focus on moving forward on what you would like to see happen while you're in office. And that's one of the things that we all did, was when we were reelected, it wasn't like, okay, now I've got to learn this. It was like the first question that was asked was, okay, now then what do you want to see happen over the next 2 years? And so I feel like this 2 years is much more productive than what the initial was. So I'm all in favor of changing the length of the term and staggering those. I think it would be a much more productive thing for the city of Amarillo.
Thank you, council members. The next two questions are from residents who emailed these in to us. The first one came from a resident wanting to know why is there still a Confederate statue, monument, whatever you want to call it, on city property in Elwood Park? I think it's been there since 1931. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm relatively close there. I want to get both your thoughts on that statue and why it's in Elwood Park. Whoever wants to go first.
That's a great question. I'll probably need to think about that for a moment.
Okay. This was, like I said, these were email question that was sent in to us by a resident. We can come back to it if you'd like to.
I'd like to think on it a little bit longer.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's come back to it.
Absolutely. The next question was also an email question from a resident. I'm just going to quote this one verbatim. How active is Amarillo in following up on people who test positive for COVID-19? For example, Amarillo Public Health Department. This person noticed an increase in recoveries recently, which I think we're all grateful for. And deaths haven't been going up at the same time, which I think obviously everyone's grateful for that. But is this because there isn't any follow-up, or as far as marking cases being recovered, or is it because we're doing better as a city? I just want to get both of your thoughts on that question.
I think this one's a little bit easier to answer. So one of the first things that I would tell you is part of the reason that we're seeing a difference now than we were before is because whenever all of this first came up, we had a limited number of testing kits that were available to us. And so basically you had to be pretty much full blown in having COVID symptoms before you were being tested. So what ends up happening is you're testing the worst of the potential patients that could end up having it, and therefore your potential worst results are probably going to happen. So the next thing that ends up happening now is we have a lot more tests available to us. And if we have a lot more tests, then we're going to be testing people earlier on. We're going to be catching more of them. And the treatments have come along a whole lot better on how they can help patients move out. We've got the remdesivir. There's several others out there that studies are beginning to come back that are showing that they're having some success treating them. And so I think what we're ending up seeing is as a country, not even just as a city, we're just doing a better job of taking care of people who are turning up positive, and we're catching them earlier. And if you catch them earlier, then you've got a lot better chance of being that much more successful. And yes, we should be seeing the rates go down, the death rates going down on that if we're catching people earlier and helping them to get better earlier. The other part of that is how active is it? I think I've watched Casey Stoughton, who's the head of the health department. She's being run ragged. She's doing a great job. They're working very hard to follow up every opportunity that they get. And so as long as the positive tests are making it to the health department, then they're able to follow up on those positive tests. And I think they're doing a great job of following up on them. I don't think that they're leaving anything behind. I do know that she says that there are some that whenever they contact them, they don't have enough contact information. So they do the very best that they can, calling, mailing letters, attempting to reach their emergency contacts. And if none of those things prove faithful or fruitful at all, then they're waiting a period of 4 weeks before they'll call that a recovery. And after a 4-week period, if there's not a death associated with it, then at that point in time, they're calling it a recovery. So they're doing their very best. They're working really long hours. The contact tracers are doing the very best that they can. So I think that they're doing a very good job of keeping up with them. And I think that we're doing a much better job of handling cases. We are testing them earlier. We are getting a better grip on things.
Thank you, Councilman Sauer. Councilmember Powell?
I believe that Councilmember Sauer has answered that question completely, and just want to give kudos out to our public health department, because Casey Stockton has certainly done a great job in following through on the different patients that she's in contact with. So
I'm going to make an assumption here, but I think I'm correct. This question probably came from, I think, last week when we had a very high number of recoveries all in one day.
okay.
And hey, believe me, we were glad to get them, but it was really related to that 4-week waiting period where they tried over and over to reach, to contact those people. They contact every person who tests positive that is reported to APHD, which is just Potter and Randall counties. But that 4-week period went through. There were no death notifications, so they were classified as recovered, like Councilmember Sauer said. So that's
doesn't it also correlate with the fact, didn't we have a whole bunch that actually came on from the meat packing plants about 4 weeks ago? And so a lot of those recoveries are now just coming online also.
Right, because I think we had, I think that was Tyson and JBS finally. So,
and some of those were also TDCJ, Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
Yes, right. That's exactly. Yeah, I forgot about that. So.
I just imagine that's where that question came from, just to give a little background on that one. The only other question we had, if you guys are comfortable going back with the former question.
Yes. So let's go back to that question. Sure. Haven't really had an opportunity to just think about it, but it was why is a Confederate monument still on city property in Elwood Park? I was trying to go back in my mind, and I know that we as a city council have had that discussion. I believe it was when we first came onto the council back in 2017. I think that's when that actually initiated. And I know that for the city of Amarillo, we're going to have citizens that are going to be pro and against, having the statue removed. And so where we sit right now, we as a city council, we need to have that discussion again, and perhaps have it back on the agenda here soon to really decide what action we're going to take, as a council, but also with input from the citizens, because again, you've got two sides to every issue. And so we've got to try to be respectful to both sides, but realizing the meaning of the statue. I haven't done a lot of research on the statue, and it seems like I remember in the back of my mind that I think on that statue it reads I want to say the Daughters of the Confederacy, I believe.
You are correct.
And so so I still think that there's some homework to be done on that.
Thank you for your thoughts, Freda. Councilman Sauer?
I think it's coming back around, and we probably, I'm going to agree that we probably need to readdress that again. And I realize that there is a different feel and a different push out there. And so I think we need input from the public as to what everybody feels. And I agree with Councilmember Powell on the fact that you've got both sides of the equation on there. You have people that want that gone, and you have people that want the statue right where it's at. And I think we've just got to be, here's the one thing. I think we have to be deliberate and thoughtful and we have to the very best of our ability, think through all of this and make the right kind of decision for what truly needs to be done at this point in time. And you know what? Times change. The need for things to happen begins to change, and so this may be a time when it's time for us to approach it again and talk about it again.
Right, and I do want to say too, I'm struggling right now with the fact that not just with the statue here in Amarillo, but when I look across our entire country, our United States, at what is going on in regards to history, because it seems like every day you turn on the TV, there's some history that is being removed. So at what point do we stop removing history and try to move forward? So when I say remove, it's like we're erasing history. So we have good history and we have bad history. And at some point we've got to learn from bad history and from good history. And so if we're moving forward today and a lot of incorrect things begin to happen today, for example, if someone erects a Confederate statue in any park or anywhere, and that's happening today, shame on that individual, you know. So at what point do we begin to try to move forward and try to heal, as not only as a city, but as a country? And so I struggle with that, you know, because I see in the news where they're wanting to change the name of some of the Army bases, I believe it is, you know. I mean, so when do we stop?
Or for that matter, they're talking about wanting to change the name of Columbus, Ohio.
Yes. And so I mean, if these things are happening today again, shame on those cities, shame on the individuals. But let's try to move forward in a unified voice, in a unified manner, for us to all work together, not only across our city, but across the United States.
I agree.
Thank you both. I do remember when this was an issue, I think you're right, in 2017, Freda, and I appreciate the thoughts of the council back then, and I appreciate your thoughts now, now that it's coming back up again.
Yeah, and it's going to be a difficult decision for us as a council to make. It's a decision that has to be made. Absolutely. You know, at some point we've got to make a decision to address the situation.
Absolutely. Well, those are all the questions we had for this version of Council Connect. I want to thank both of you for taking the time to be here today. I know it's been a long day for you with council meetings and Council Connect. We appreciate your participation and your input. Thank you, both of you. Once again, Council Connect, we do this the first Tuesday of every month at 5:30. Hopefully very soon we can do it again in person. I would hope
so. That would be nice.
Yes, we would love that.
I thank everyone for the questions. Thank you guys, and we'll see everybody next month. This is David Henry. I'm the Communications Manager for the City of Amarillo. We'll see everybody next month. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave.